The conflict between the United States and Iran has taken a dangerous new turn. Unable to withstand American military pressure in Operation Epic Fury, Iran has shifted its strategy away from fighting soldiers and toward attacking the economic infrastructure that the entire world depends on. On March 18th, Iran launched 5 ballistic missiles at Qatar. 4 were intercepted by Qatari air defenses, but 1 got through, landing directly inside the Ras Laffan industrial city. The damage was severe. Qatar Energy, which runs the facility, described the destruction as extensive. Ras Laffan is no ordinary target. It's one of the planet's most important liquefied natural gas hubs, responsible for roughly a fifth of the entire world's LNG supply. Restoring it to full capacity could take years, not months. This wasn't even Iran's first move against Ras Laffan. 2 weeks earlier, a Shahed drone had struck the site as a warning. Qatar had temporarily halted production at that point. The March 18th ballistic missile strike was something else entirely, a deliberate attempt to cause lasting economic damage. Global energy markets responded immediately. European natural gas futures spiked by over 28% the following morning, briefly surging as high as 35% at market open. Analysts warned that the attack could trigger a lasting global gas shortage, with one energy analyst noting the impact on supply could stretch on for years, even after hostilities end. Making things worse, these are highly complex cooling operations. Simply halting them abruptly rather than through a controlled shutdown process causes additional damage on its own. Iran didn't stop at Qatar. It followed up with a sustained 2-day drone assault on Kuwait's Mina al-Ahmadi refinery, the country's largest. The facility processes around 730,000 barrels of crude oil daily, equivalent to roughly $73 million worth of oil every 24 hours at current prices. Fires broke out across multiple refining units. Iran failed to knock the entire refinery offline and caused no casualties, but several units were forced to shut down, a significant disruption nonetheless. The pattern is clear. Blocked from competing with American military power on a conventional battlefield, Iran is deliberately targeting civilian energy infrastructure across the Gulf. These strikes didn't emerge from nowhere. A chain of retaliatory attacks set the stage. On March 17th, an Iranian drone strike suspended operations at the Shah gas field near Abu Dhabi, which provides around 20% of the UAE's annual gas supply. Israel then responded by hitting the South Pars gas field, Iran's largest domestic energy source, which it shares with Qatar. Qatar's foreign ministry immediately condemned that Israeli strike as reckless and dangerous to global energy security. Iran's subsequent missile barrage proved that warning correct. Iran now sees an opening. Every time energy infrastructure is attacked, it gains a pretext to escalate further, and it's happy to do exactly that. Most Gulf oil and gas producers have already been forced to cut their output. If Iran continues targeting these facilities unchecked, the reductions will only deepen. There's also a political dimension that goes beyond supply and demand. Energy is the foundation of Gulf statecraft. It shapes diplomatic relationships, sustains ruling regimes, funds foreign labor, and anchors every major international partnership in the region. Targeting energy infrastructure doesn't just spike prices, it destabilizes the political architecture of the entire region. That chaos is precisely what Iran wants to manufacture. The more disorder it creates beyond its own borders, the more pressure it can direct at Washington to halt Operation Epic Fury. Washington's response was swift and calculated across 2 fronts. First, the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff confirmed on March 19th that A-10 Thunderbolt II aircraft are now actively hunting and destroying Iranian fast attack boats operating in the strait. These swift vessels, some capable of exceeding 30 knots, had been Iran's primary tool for terrorizing commercial shipping. By swarming slow-moving tankers and threatening them with drones, missiles, and gunfire, Iran had effectively choked down traffic through one of the world's most critical waterways. Roughly 20% of global oil consumption flows through the Strait of Hormuz, along with a major share of Qatar's LNG exports. Iran adopted this fast boat strategy after learning in the 1980s that a conventional navy is no match for U.S. naval power. Small, fast, asymmetric, these vessels could strike and vanish before American warships could react. But the A-10 is a different problem entirely. Originally designed as a Soviet tank killer in the 1970s, the aircraft carries a 30mm 7-barrel rotary cannon capable of shredding a fast boat before its crew can respond. What Iran's boats gain in speed on water, they lose immediately when the threat moves to the sky. Second, bunker busters on the coastline. Alongside the A-10 operations, the U.S. has begun dropping 5,000-pound GBU-72 bunker-busting bombs, reportedly delivered by F-15E Strike Eagles, on Iran's hardened anti-ship missile facilities and fast boat launch sites along with Strait's coastline. These weapons, guided by GPS and inertial navigation, are designed to punch through reinforced concrete before detonating inside. Taking out the launch infrastructure is a direct answer to Iran's gas and oil attacks. Even if missiles got through once, the sites firing them are being systematically destroyed. As of March 19th, 44 Iranian mine-laying vessels had also been eliminated, another layer stripped from Iran's effort to make the strait impassable. The U.S. has made clear this response isn't over. Admiral Brad Cooper, commanding U.S. Central Command, stated that dismantling Iran's threat to freedom of navigation through the Strait of Hormuz remains a central mission. President Trump escalated the rhetoric further. On March 22, he warned that Iran's domestic power stations would become targets if the strait wasn't reopened within 48 hours, a deadline landing squarely on March 24. Beyond the strait, U.S. forces are intensifying strikes on the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps command and control networks inside Iran. Degrading those networks makes it harder for Iran to plan and coordinate future strikes against Gulf energy infrastructure. And then there is Karg Island, perhaps the most consequential card the U.S. holds. The small island, barely 7.7 square miles, accounts for over 90% of Iran's oil exports. The U.S. has deliberately avoided destroying its oil infrastructure, preferring to keep that economic pressure in reserve. But following Iran's attacks on Qatar and Kuwait, that calculation is shifting. Reports indicate that administration officials are actively discussing seizing the island entirely, not just bombing it, but physically taking control of it. If that happens, the U.S. wouldn't merely damage Iran's oil revenues, it would control them. That single move could collapse Iran's economy and remove the financial foundation that sustains the regime's ability to fight at all. What began as a focused military campaign against Iran's defense infrastructure has evolved into something broader and more dangerous, an energy war with global consequences. Iran's strategy relies on the idea that disrupting world energy markets will generate enough international pressure to force the U.S. to stand down. It's a calculated bet that the economic pain inflicted on countries far from the conflict will matter more than the military punishment Iran continues to absorb. The U.S. response signals the opposite conclusion. Every fast boat destroyed, every launch site demolished, every mine layer eliminated is a message. Iran's leverage is being systematically dismantled, one strike at a time. Whether Iran recalculates before the U.S. runs out of patience or targets may determine how far this conflict ultimately goes.